Okay, gang, let's go ahead and get started. Want to welcome everyone to the second session for chapter admins to overview of our WiNUP.org site. For those of you who may not know who I am, my name is Hillary Sheffer, and I am with the Ohio chapter of WiNUP and am currently the 2020 International Website Chair. So if you have any questions regarding your pages or your access or anything else like that, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Lisa Morinini or myself. But today, I want to really briefly talk about what the main focus of today's is really going to be around creating an event on the calendar. The nice thing about all being on one platform is that we can share our information across our chapters. And with this being such an unusual year, obviously more and more, if not all, of our events were virtual. For those of us who were able to hold events, they were virtual. And the nice thing about that is it gave us the opportunity to share those events across the chapters. So we really kind of wanted to focus on setting up events, talk about some of the kind of the lessons learned that we as the Ohio chapter stumbled across or ran across, and things that we, where we still may have some questions. We're working out some details, but really kind of wanting to focus on that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenter today, Casey Grimm. Go ahead, Casey. It's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Hillary. And I'll just have you go to the next slide there for our safety moment. All right. So the safety moment I wanted to touch on here that I thought was pretty important for this time of year is to know where your main water line is. I had this happen to me last year. I had a pipe burst. And thankfully, my husband was home, and he knew exactly where that main water line was, and he was able to get to our basement and get it shut off pretty quickly, or it could have been a lot worse. So I like to share around this time of year, make sure you know, or somebody else, even anybody who lives in your home, know where that water line is, because I think probably the men at home might know where that is, but maybe you don't, maybe your kids don't. It's important to know where it is. So every home does have one. You've got, you could have it in your basement. It could be in a utility closet. It might be located outdoors. So those are some of the typical locations you'll find them. And just a real quick thing, the shutoff valve on the left, you'll see that's an outdoor one, and that's called a gate type. And so to close or shut off your water on that one, you just follow the old saying, lefty loosey, righty tighty. That's how you'll be able to turn it off or turn it on. And then on the right there, that one might be something that you see down in your basement. And that one is a different type. And you'll see it's vertical and in line with that pipe. That means that your water line is on. To turn it off, you'll just take that and turn it 90 degrees to the right, and you'll turn the water off. So that's something I like to think about during the safety moment. And Hillary, you can go to the next slide for the culture moment. So for that, just a good reminder, take care of your mental health. Do something good for you today. Drink enough water. Take a walk. I know it's cold. I know here in Ohio we got some snow, but maybe you're lucky enough to have your path cleared and you can find a way to get outside, get a walk, and get moving. You could do some yoga. That's easy. You don't need too much space for that. Read a good book, or maybe just connect with some of your friends or family outside of your home. You can FaceTime them if you need. And I wanted to do a little plug as well for other ways. I know if you work for AP, we do have an employee assistance program that you can get connected with a counselor through there. And something that everybody can use, it's an app called BetterHelp. That's one. I know there's quite a few out there, but BetterHelp is one of the options that you can connect virtually to a counselor. So take care of your mental health. All right, next slide. So we're going to bring up the event questionnaire template here. And this template's pretty nice. You'll recognize as we move into the website. That dark blue banner that you'll see on each of the sections at the top, so the first one here you see basic info, that is going to be mirrored on the website. So when you're creating an event, you're going to have tabs across the top that will, you'll have to fill in the different fields associated with those tabs. And if you fill out this event questionnaire first, or if you have somebody else in your committee who's in charge of an event and you just might be the one putting it onto the website, if you can get the basic information into here, it's going to make your life really easy to get it onto the website. So a couple things to highlight. At the top, we do have, if you're with Ohio, we put our Gmail access in there. If you're not the one that's going to actually be putting in the event and you want to connect one of the website committee members to do it for you, we do have an email you can send it to. The subject line there, we just ask that you put event request in there so we know who to direct it to. But of course, if we're showing you today as admins how to add an event on your own. So if you need assistance, you can reach out to that email as well. As Hillary said, she can help any of the chapter members. Something else in here for something we started, I believe we just started doing it this year, and Hillary can correct me if I'm wrong there, but for our Ohio specific events, we started putting an OH in front of those titles. And so for any of our other chapters, if you want to use a template like this or steal ours and we can share it with you, you could just go ahead and change that OH and put your abbreviation in there for events that are related to your specific chapter. But yeah, it goes kind of walks you through. Oh, go ahead. Was somebody talk?
Yeah, Casey, this is Hillary. I just wanted to mention that at an international level, the website and social media guidelines were approved by the board. And in those guidelines, there's a table that has everybody's code for their chapter. And the reason we're asking you to do that is depending on how you access the site, when you go to the events page, especially for events that have been made public so that anybody visiting our website can see them, it will help us understand who the hosting chapter is. So you can very easily see at a glance when you're looking at everybody's who's the actual hosting chapters. That's why we're asking you to put that in front of it. And when we get out there, you'll see what we're talking about. And I'll point out a couple other things as Casey's doing the demo. But that's why that's there. So if you want to know what it is, just ping me in the chat as Casey's talking, and I can tell you what your chapter's code is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hillary, for jumping in there, and feel free to add to anything that I'm saying. I'll do my best to cover what I need to, but I think Hillary's probably our resident expert here. Okay, so going through this, you don't have to fill out every single section on here, but it is a pretty good guideline. If you could fill in most of this information, you'll see that there is some required items there. But yeah, Hillary, you can just kind of scroll through and give everybody an idea of what we have in there. So we got events, contacts, location information. So again, these dark blue titles that I'm calling out here, registration and fees, you will recognize these once I pull up the event creator. Those are going to align very nicely with the information that it's going to ask you. Again, you don't have to fill out everything. Not everything is required, but it is pretty handy to have any information you think you'll need to get onto the website. And for your event creation, it'll go in here and translate pretty nicely for you. All right, does anybody have any questions on that event questionnaire before we move into the site? All right, well, I'll go ahead, Hillary, if you're good, I'll share my screen then, and we'll get into it. And as Hillary said, she'll be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions on something that I'm saying, or you want more information, just throw it in the chat there, and we'll get you answered.
Yep. So go ahead, and I'll stop sharing, and you can take over.
Okay. All right. So all I did here was go to our WiNUP website, and I'm going to log in with my credentials here. All right, I'm glad I remembered my credentials. All right, now that's when the control panel would come up. And you'll see across the top, if you just go to website, that's where you'll find our events. We'll navigate to that. And just so you know, I do have a notes page that I'm sort of working off of with some reminders on here of things that are maybe a little less straightforward. So I could share those with you all as well at the conclusion of this. But when you get to the events manager, so again, I just went to the website, and then you'll find the events manager underneath there. And you're going to come right up with a searching function. So this is pretty nice. If you know your specific title, you can search for it in there, and you might look for other activities or events set up similar to how you are going to be set up yours, and you can look at those and see how other people do it. One of the nice little function is if you just hit search, it'll come up with everything. So here's all the events that we had this past year, which is a pretty nice list. And a couple things that I'll point out, but you'll be able to, we'll go through and make a new one of our own, but you can edit any of them and go into any of them. So I might go into an old one that I set up. And this is what it's gonna look like here when I create my own. But so again, that basic information, event contact, location, registration and freeze, all those things should look familiar from that event questionnaire. So like I said, if you go in and you fill out that event questionnaire, or somebody from your committee is filling that out for you, it will make your life really easy when you're going in to create your event. You can just plug that information right into the editor here. Let me go back. The events manager. And you can also, if you have created an event and you're going to find something similar, you can copy any of these events and then edit what information you see fit. So that's going to be a handy thing for you as you create your first one and then kind of go from there, or grab somebody else's that you said, oh, that's similar to what I need to do for mine. And you can just copy and edit from there. But I'll show you how to add one from the get-go if you'd like. You'll see we've got event, a quick event, and notification. What we recommend is you're going to want to use event, so notification might be an announcement or something you're going to send out. The quick event really doesn't give you much customability there, so the event will give you everything you possibly need to include, so that's where I'm going to go ahead and do that. And one thing I did want to mention, the difference here between a single event and multiple up here. A single is going to be a one-time event, which is probably the most common thing that you'll be using. So that could be your committee events, networking, professional development, something like that. The multiple event, what that's going to be used for would be something like the annual banquet, where that could happen at multiple locations. Maybe you had an event taken across multiple days or different locations, like I mentioned. So that's when you'd want to choose multiple, but I imagine most of you will be utilizing that single activities. And you will see not all information is required, but anywhere where there's that red bubble that you see to the right, that is required information that you will have to fill in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just call it a mock event. You can add a short description here if you'd like, but I'm going to save the description for later on in a different window, but you could put a short description there if you'd like. And here's where you're going to choose what category it is. So let's just pretend we're making a professional development event here. This is for Ohio. And one thing that I also wanted to point out for this visibility, it is important. So if you're having, as Hillary mentioned, we could have public events, and this would be for anybody who comes onto our site and checks out the event calendar. Anyone would be able to see your event information if you choose visible to everybody. If you choose this option, the visible to everyone, but details are for members only, it's pretty self-explanatory. They'll be able to see that there is an event, but they won't be able to have access to the details of it. You could also make it private if it's just for members only, or you don't want to share your information publicly. You can just choose it to members only. One thing that's important to note on that, you would have to be logged into the website to be able to see that if you choose members only. So make sure you're mindful of that. And you could choose not visible. So for this one, a reason why you might not make it visible right away is if maybe you're just practicing and you want to get an event in there, and then you can come back and edit and say, okay, I like how this looks. I've previewed it and I like it, so now I'm ready to make it visible. So you can always come back and change that. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as not visible. All right, here, this is whenever you have the event pulled up, whenever they see it on the calendar, once you actually have it publicly or made public out on our calendar, we can change what that text button looks like for them to actually view the details. But I just usually leave it as the default of view. You want to go in and set your event. So I'll just put some times in here. You can change the time as well. So it's a pretty handy tool. If you click on that clock, you can just automatically populate some things, or you can manually type as well. Now, down here at the bottom where all these check boxes are, these are all of the fields that you are going to be able to edit. And I do want to point this out that let's just say maybe you don't have any questions that you want to ask your participants. You can uncheck that and it will not require you to fill out that panel. Or if you're not sure what that question is, or maybe you do want it and you just want that option, you can leave it and then delete the panel later on. So it's pretty customizable, and I think this section will make a lot more sense once you see what all the other options are. But for now, I'm going to say this panel is complete. And once I hit save, that's what creates the event. So if I did not click save and I just backed up out of here, it will be as if I never created this Ohio mock event. So I have to click save on this panel, and then it's going to allow me to populate all the other panels. It is pretty handy the way they have this set up. So you'll be able to track it in two different ways. So these are all of the panels that it's going to ask me about at the top. But I also will have them all handy right here in front of me as well on this screen. So you can access these panels by either clicking into here, clicking on that pencil to edit, or you can just click right across at the top for this little ribbon here. Either way works. And you'll notice that all these reds are because I have not filled out the required information for those panels. And this one's marked green because I said, hey, this panel is complete. I'm good to go. And I'll go into this formatted description box. Okay, so here's where the reason why I didn't put anything in the short description is because I kind of like the formatted description. It's kind of nice. It'll allow you to, you can add images into here. You can add links into here. You can maybe you go in and make it a little more fancy. If you're creative, you can go ahead and customize this really nicely. And I think, Hillary, do we have, you might correct me if I'm wrong here, but don't we have a video on how to use some of this editor?
Yes. I don't know about an actual video, but at any point in time, if you hit the question mark in the upper right corner there, it will take you to the Club Express help. And they do have a lot of information, and you're right. They do have a lot of YouTube videos on various things to fill in. One thing I will point out here on the formatted, as Casey said, a lot of us like using the formatted because it does let you be a little bit more creative. Especially if you've got, like our chapter, we develop a flyer for each of our events. So if you've got a flyer, you can basically replicate it right here. If you do use this right below the editor box, which is a real WYSIWYG. There's the display event description. You can display this information, the fancy formatted information, above your event details or at the bottom. And the bottom is usually the default, but that's just how you want it. When they click it and open it up, what do you want them to see first? The event details, or do you want them to see your flyer? So, it's all there on that same page. It's just what order do you want them to be in?
And I can show you an example of what Ghost looks like and how you can kind of go back and edit. So maybe I just insert an image. I'll do this real quick. I have one already loaded up. Okay. So this is one that I used on a previous thing. So let me go back before I just do what I just did. So there's two ways that you can grab an image. So I had an image already loaded into a photo gallery because I knew I used it before for another event that I had created. So if you just type in part of what that picture looks like, you can grab it from, this actually is from a photo gallery, or you can grab it off of your computer and a desktop, whatever file you have, and that would be to upload a new file, and you can drag and drop your new image right in there. Okay, so that's what it looks in here. Maybe I want to add in a new row to make it more look like a flyer, as Hillary was kind of referencing. So this 100% here, I chose 100%. That's going to add me a new row that takes up the full box, the full description. Or you could change it to 50-50. So I'll put a couple pieces of information in there. So maybe I'll say, this is from the Ohio STEM committee. And then maybe I'll put myself in as the contact. And I'll put maybe put your email or something like that. But you can it gives you an idea of how you might format some of these things, and you can play around with it. But as Hillary had mentioned, if you click that question mark, it will give you some tips and tricks on how to use this. But I'll leave it there for now. And I am going to leave it at the bottom just so you can see the difference, and I might change it to the top later. But I feel pretty good about that. For the event rules, maybe I know we had a social recently where we had a bingo event, so maybe you put some event rules in there about how you're going to play bingo. Any other additional information that you want to put in there, you can, but I'm going to leave it blank because it's not required. I don't see that red bubble, so I do not have to do this, but I'll just click my panel is complete and I'm good to go. And every time you click save, it is going to take you back to this overall kind of view of where you're at with the event creation. So again, I still have a long way to go, but it will go pretty quickly after this. So again, you can click events contact through here if I want to get to that next section, or I can just hit the pencil and it will allow me to edit it. Either way will take you to the same spot. Okay, so for this, it is nice whenever you bring up some things that we, actually Hillary showed me this. It is kind of nice if you're selecting a member, search by their last name. It comes up a lot nicer for whatever reason. If I type Casey in here for the search, it's just not as easy to find me. So I'll search by my last name and make myself the contact. Whoever you're going to make as the contact, search by last name, and it's a lot more friendly to pick you up. So I'll go in there, select my name, and that adds me in as the contact. And for the responsibilities, you could just put a short description. I could just say that I'm the primary contact, and I'll just say that I'll provide event information. And here, this is also really important. So you maybe want to be a little more mindful of how what information you're sharing to everybody. You know, I'm fine with my email going out to everybody, anybody who visits our site, but maybe I don't want to share my phone number, so I'll just put members only, or I don't have to provide a phone number at all. But I feel that's just something you want to think about. So everyone who looks at this site, they'll be able to go on and see my email, but members have to log in if they want to have my phone number. And another important thing on this one, you definitely want to check that primary contact. That's an easy one to add. Maybe you have multiple contacts here, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But notify on registration. If you check mark this box, it will send whoever the contacts are, it will send them an email every single time somebody signs up. So especially for some of those bigger events, you may not want to be getting an email every time someone signs up. So I would not recommend checking that unless you're down with getting a bunch of emails. That's fine. But I don't think I want all of those. So I'm just going to add it without checking that notify on registration. And so
Yeah,
as soon as
that's a
I
good
added myself here.
Yeah,
Go
that's
ahead,
a good
Hillary.
point, Casey. Just FYI, guys, you can always go back into your event and see who is registered. So you don't have to get those emails to find out who's actually registered for your event, and we can show you that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have access to that full list without getting a notification and collecting it that way. So that's good to add too, Hillary. Yeah, so I am the primary contact on here. Everyone's going to see my email. Members only are going to see my phone, and you can go in and edit that if you want. I can get rid of myself as that primary contact, but you can also add in more members. So you just click select, and you can add as many people as you'd like on there. And as I mentioned before, when you're searching, it is a lot easier and more friendly if you search by last name and then hit search. Okay, so I feel pretty good about this event contact. One is good, and I will hit save, and I'll take us back to our main page. So I have the first three panels done here. They all look good, and you can preview what your information is, what we put in there just by clicking this drop down, which is kind of nice. And I'll show you what the overall event will look like when somebody enters it here in just a minute. Let's go over to location. And most of these are pretty self-explanatory. So again, on this location, you'll notice there's not a red dot on here, so it is not required information. I'm sure you're going to want something in there, regardless if it's virtual or not. So I know something we've kind of been putting in for our virtual events, you might put in this event is going to be taking place via WebEx, and you can provide the link either here or you can provide it in an email that'll directly send to those who are registering. So you can kind of decide how you want to put that WebEx link in there. If it is going to take place anywhere else, you can just put that address in as normal. So I'll just make this one a virtual event. WebEx, and that's all I need. I don't have to put an address in here, or you could provide that information as you see fit. So that's all I wanted there. So this panel is complete. I did want to mention this. So if you had it at a site that maybe it was taking place at a hotel, you can add a direct link to that website in here as well. And you'll just type where that's going to be. So maybe you already have a page that has the information on there created on your website. An external page would be what you would choose if you're going to take it and actually, take it out to an external site where the hotel is located. And you can just copy and paste that external link right in here. And what will happen, there's a couple different ways you can have that displayed. So if you display it as a text, it's just going to look like a hyperlink. If you choose button, this link you add will create a button similar to what it shows here, like with the save, or you can add an image and have that image be clickable and it will take you to the next thing. But a good thing that I would want to point out for any of these options, if you're adding the external page, you want to make sure that you select that it's in a new window. And I do believe that's the default. But if you choose same window and then click on that, it's actually, it's going to open it up. Well, I guess you could do either way, but new window is kind of nice because then it's not going to interfere with the registrant. So I would recommend that new window. But I don't need to add a link since mine is virtual WebEx, and I'll leave it there. And I'll go in. Again, you can click on registration fees up at the top, or if you click that pencil, that allows you to go in and edit as well. So for registration, we do recommend that you have that registration required. It is kind of nice for us to be able to go back and kind of see who's been participating in what events and things like that throughout the year. So it is nice to have registration. And yeah, I did see Hillary's chat just came through. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat, or we can pause if you have anything that you want to go back over. So the registration open date, that's going to be, it could be the same as when your event is, or when you make the event available, rather. Or you can set it at a different time. But I know my event is scheduled for tomorrow, so I'm going to say I want registration to be available as soon as this becomes visible to everybody. And you can set a timer on it too if you'd like. But it's, again, not required information, but I'm just going to go ahead and put in that we can open the registration today. This visibility of the registration list, no matter what you choose here, whether it's non-public or members only, you are still going to have access to see who registered. So just be aware of that. It's just this, you're going to change the visibility of who can see the list. So if you make it public, of course, anybody who signs up for the event and anybody who travels to the website will be able to see the names of people who have signed up for the event. Members only, again, they'd have to be logged into the website, and members would be able to get a list of who attended or who is registered for that event. So again, you will have access regardless of what you choose to take a look at, but if you want people to see or have access to that as well, that's where you'd make those changes. And you can, just like these save and cancel buttons down here, you can change it. The default says register now, but you can change it to maybe say sign up here or whatever you'd like. If you want to get more creative with what that button is going to read, you can customize it right there. I do recommend clicking yes to avoid duplicate registrations. Again, if you click no, it's going to allow whoever to sign up as many times as they want. And I wouldn't really see a need for that to happen, so avoiding the duplicates is kind of nice. You can set your capacity limit. So maybe you have a room that only has 20 chairs available, so you can type that in there that only 20 people can be in there. And you can just choose if you want to display that information. And I would suggest if you do have a capacity, you probably at minimum want to display how many slots are available so that people know as they're registering, or if they're still deciding, oh, there's only 5 spots left, I better hurry up and register for this, for example.
Casey, can I jump in here for a quick sec? We got a couple of questions in the chat. Ahead. So the first question is around the time of the event. For the most part, the events do default to Eastern time zone. And so as you're setting up your event details, you do, especially if especially for these virtual events where you may have people across the country joining in your virtual event, you do want to make sure you tell in your descriptions, in your reminder emails, wherever you have a chance to, that the time is Eastern time for those events, or what time zone those, you're, wanting that event to be held. So you do want to make that. I do know in your profiles, you can go in and tell your profile what time zone you live in or reside in. But the site right now does not do a very good job of indicating or making that adjustment for you. So you do want to make sure you put that in your information. The other question was regarding the terminology of all members. Technically, when we refer to all members, we're referring to all WiNUP members. And that's including not only your own chapter, but everybody who is a WiNUP member. However, there is a way you can make an event just for your chapter only. However, right now, that particular feature is only available to Lisa and myself. So if you have put in, which we both shake our heads at as to why that's that way. But so if you happen to put an event on and you do want to close it to just your chapter, just simply ping Lisa and myself, and one of us will go in there and flip that switch for you. Questions about that piece? Or either one of those pieces? Okay. Take it away, Casey.
All right, thanks, Hillary. Yeah, that was good to mention. I did forget to mention about that Eastern time zone, so that's a tricky one. Okay, so yep. Again, if you don't have a capacity, you can just select no, and it will get rid of all these information. You are not required to answer them. If you change that information to no, it disappeared on me because I don't have a capacity limit for my WebEx the way I have this currently one set up. So we'll move on to fees and payments. So for the most part, I think this the way this works out, it's pretty self-explanatory on most things. It does look like a lot and seems like a lot, but there's only a few pieces that you might trip you up. And so that's what I'm going to mostly try to focus on and point out. And this is one of them that when I first looked at it, it was just nice to have an example. So a fee will be charged for all or part of this event. Again, that one's pretty straightforward. No fee will be charged for any part of the event. So if your event's free. And then this last one, members pay for their own charges. So this would be if you, for whatever reason, decide to hold your event at the zoo. You don't have to members wouldn't have to pay to attend the event, but they would pay their own fee to get into the zoo so that they can come to your event. So that would be an example for the members pay their own charges. And I will shout out to Dawn West on that one. She explained that to me, so that was really good on her part. So most often you'll probably choose you'll be charged for all or part of the event, but that one would be if you're hosting it at somewhere that requires a fee to enter, you might just have that. They'll pay their own way into the event. Okay. Again, you have some options here. You can choose how you allow your participants or your registrants to pay. I'm just going to leave it as pay in advance. You can decide if you want them to be able to pay as they register. That would be a payment required immediately, or you can have it set at a later time. And then it does give you the option, does this fee change after a certain date? So maybe you have a $15 fee for those who register early, and maybe a $20 fee if they're registering within the week. And so you can set that up right here if you want to do like an early bird special. This is another one that is important to look at, the financial account. So if you choose master event registrations, I do believe this goes to international funds. To change that, you'll want to select your chapter's membership dues. So for the Ohio chapter, we'll choose Ohio membership dues. If we're in Northern Indiana, we would choose Northern Indiana membership dues. That's choosing the Northern Indiana membership or the Northern Indiana bank account, North Texas bank account, etc. We do want to track attendance, so that's going to give us our list of who has signed up. And then again, here you can decide if they're allowed to bring a guest with them. So I'll say, sure, you can bring one guest. And then the mailing list category here, it already defaults to event registrants, and that's probably who you want to target anyway, but you do have other options to change and have that mailing list go out to other people as well. But event registrants is what I have, or will be the default rather. Now, these non-member settings, this is what information is going to be required when a guest attends or signs up to register for your event. So you can provide boxes to prompt them to provide this information. So you probably at minimum want to get an email address from them. I think that would probably be something good to require. That way you can have a way to contact them. All of our WiNUP members are already in here, so they would already, if a member signed up for an event, we would already have their email information. But for your guests and non-members, it's probably good to at least collect that email address from them, and you can make these other things available if you want.
Yeah, just a quick note on that. If you've got your event set up to not allow duplicates, it will automatically check for members, obviously, because we have all their information. For non-members and guests, you do want to take their email. So it will look at their name, their last name, and their email, the combination of their last name and email to confirm that they've already registered. So if somebody tries to register a second time, that's what it checks.
Yep, that's all good. And yeah, so that's kind of the overview of registration and fees. And the next panel is what's going to allow us to set prices for what the event's going to be. So this one is kind of setting up, yeah, we're going to charge a fee. Yes, we want them to pay in advance. Yes, we're allowing guests to attend. And so I set that information here. And on the next panel, that's when I'll set the actual fee price for the event. So again, once I click this panel is complete, I'm going to save it. And it will show up as green on my main list here. Who can register? Okay, so here's where you're going to go in, and as I said, this is going to allow you to actually set that fee for everybody. So you can have everyone who attends, they can all pay the same price, or you can kind of change it up and select. So maybe I want my active members, I'm going to say, we'll just call them WiNUP members. I'll have WiNUP members, let's just say you've got a $10 fee. I'll add that. Maybe I've got, since this one I had it set up for a STEM committee, maybe, or the website committee, maybe I want them to have a reduced price. So we'll just say website committee members. We'll say they pay only $8. And then you can also choose some of these different types. So I did want to mention any non-member or guest. So that's, we said, we've got any non-member, because I did set it up and say that guests are allowed. Any non-member would pay a different fee. This non-member guest, this would be a guest to a non-member. It's kind of strange how they have some of these things set up, but most of them are self-explanatory. So if anybody has a question on what some of these other ones might look like, let me know. but for the most part, I think they're straightforward. And then I'll just say any non.
Yeah, as you're finishing that up, Casey. Yeah, most of us will probably use member. If we do charge different prices, we'll probably use member and then the non-member for a different rate. Probably will be the two most commonly used.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that, Hillary. And yeah, so you just wanted to show an example where you can choose and set the rates for different rates, or you could just say, you know, everybody who joins this attends this event will all pay the same price, and that would just be everyone. It does give you an option here to copy from another event. So again, if you set up an event previously and you had those fees already set in place, you could just copy this list down here from another event. It does give you that option. Okay. All right, these last couple ones are, they're pretty quick, so it shouldn't take us too much longer to go through here, and we'll open it up for any more questions that we've got. Okay, so as I had mentioned, you can add questions or ask questions of your registration or your participants that are coming to your event. And I do want to point out the difference between registration questions and registrant questions, because the difference is kind of subtle. But if I give you an example, I think it'll make it more clear on what types of questions you might add to each of these. So for a registration question, that's going to happen once per registration. So for example, if you are registering yourself with a guest and you register for the event, it's going to ask you directly for, maybe you ask, you know, do you require a hotel room? You only need to answer that once for yourself and your guest. So you could include that in the registration questions. The registrant questions are going to be available per registrant. So you'll answer the question for yourself and for your guest. So for example, maybe you say, what's your t-shirt size? You and your guest might have a different t-shirt size, so that would be a registrant question that you would ask at that level. And those are pretty straightforward, and you can just add those questions right into there. And I did mention before, when we saw under the basic info tab, it had all of those check boxes at the beginning. I could decide if I did or didn't want one of those panels. Well, maybe I really don't, for my event, need to ask any questions of my registration participants there. So if I just click remove from event, that's going to get rid of, I'll click OK. That's going to get rid of that panel altogether. I do not need to fill out any questions, and it'll just remove it from my my panels here that I'll have to edit. Okay, let's go into email confirmation. So on this one, I'll show you an example of what the email reminder is going to look like, whether you add additional information or not. So that way you have an idea of what that looks like. But here you can add in whatever sort of information. This would be a good place that I would suggest for those of you who are having virtual events. If you have a WebEx link or a Zoom connection, or however whatever platform you're going to choose to add in, this would be a good place to add that direct link if you do not want it to be public, for example. It would just send that information directly to the participant or whoever's registering. And then you can check, I want to send an automatic reminder for those who are coming to the event. So this is, again, going to all registrants. So I can send up to 2 reminders automatically to them. And you can choose the date of which you want that to go. So again, I believe I have my event set up for tomorrow, so I'm going to send everybody a reminder today, and I might also send them a reminder on that same time that event is. So this one's specifically going to go out to all of your people who have registered for that event. Or you'll have a list here with your chapter on there. You can choose to send it out to members of Ohio, and you can say it'll provide the same email confirmation. Whatever additional info you put in here will go out to those Ohio members. But let me show you an example of what it looks like if you do put in additional info or if you don't. Because notice it's not required, but if you do want reminders to go out, I'll show you what that looks like. Let me pull this up. Okay. So the email confirmation, this first example, no additional info is added, and you can see that here on the left. We didn't put anything in there. This is what the default reminder email is going to look like. So it's still going to include some of your basic information. So what the event is, the date and time. It'll have your registration name in there. And then it will, so this WebEx meeting must have been included in the short description, if I had to guess. And then it will close with, if you have any questions, here's our primary contact. So that's what the default looks like if you put no information in that additional information box. And if you do include information, it's just going to attach it right into the middle of that email. So at the top, you still have, you'll notice the tap's still the same. It has the title in there, the date and time of the event, your registration name in there, and then all of that same information. So you'll see right here where it says, reminder, you are registered for part 1 of 3. That's where it starts grabbing that. Whoops. That's where it's going to start grabbing your information that you throw into that additional info box, and it will close out again with the primary contact. So that's just, I wanted to make sure you got to see what those different things are going to look like for the email side of things. So again, you're not required to put any additional info if you don't want. It will still provide some basic information on the event that you typed in. Okay, so I will say this is complete. We got 2 more and we're almost done. Okay, so for the policy, you can, if you choose that cancellations are allowed, you can go in here and put in a cutoff time. Maybe they have to pay a fee for the cancellation. If you are allowing that, all those options will come up. And then there's a cancellation policy and a release agreement policy. So I just wanted to point out for that cancellation policy, maybe that's where you do explain that they'll have a fee if they cancel at a certain date, or maybe what that cutoff time is. The release agreement would be, maybe you're going rock climbing and you want a release agreement. So you can include that in for your event participants there. And there is, so when you click yes on these, you'll notice that the option comes up. Do you want to use the default or no and put a custom in? As of now, if you use the default, I believe it is blank. But if you click no, use a custom, it's going to allow you to type whatever your cancellation policy or release agreement policy is going to be. And I believe Hillary was going to check into that from the international to see if we were going to have maybe a recommendation of, you know, what our default cancellation policy and release agreement would be. So I'll let Hillary.
Yeah, that is correct. Right now, there is not a default set on the site for either the cancellation or the release agreement. So if you do use it, we do recommend that you do the custom, and then you can create your own. Otherwise, I'll work with International to see if we ever do want to put a standard in there. But for right now, there is not one set.
Thank you, Hillary. And again, you don't have to include this in here. Maybe since you don't have a policy for cancellation or want that information displayed, you can simply click remove from event and it'll take it away from you, and you don't need to display it in your event. Okay. which one? I might have just accidentally deleted deleted the wrong one. That's okay, I'll get it back. So if you do want to get it back, you can go back to that basic info and you'll just simply check box that after event or whichever one you do and don't want. You can add it back in by going to the basic info and click save and it will readjust for you. So really easy if you end up making a mistake like I just did. I'll pretend I did that on purpose for you all to show how you can fix it. You just go back to basic info and it'll allow you to add those things in. Okay, so probably the most common thing you'll use on the after event, if you want to have a photo album available, or you can include an event report. But I did want to point out this photo album one because the event report is pretty similar. You can decide if you want it to be shown immediately after your event, or immediately or after the event. And I do want to point out that you already have to have that photo album named and set up. So I'll quickly show you how to do that, or at least where to find it and how you can include it. So if you do want to make it available immediately or after the event, you'll choose it here. And for it to show up into this drop down, you'll kind of want to go back to where you came for this event. So I'm going to hit control panel just to get me there quickly. It's under website, and then you just go to photo album, and it'll allow you add in your photo album right here, and you can choose just add in this information. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you'll have to create this photo album first if you want a dedicated photo album to your event. You'll create it in there under the control panel and photo album, and then it will be added to that drop down in your event. So I'll go back and finish it up. Okay, so it did take me back to my events manager. Here's my Ohio mock event that I created in here. I can edit it and finish this last panel up, and then we'll see where we're at. So again, maybe you don't have anything added in here. I'll remove that. I don't want to include anything. But I do want to see what it looks like. So if you click this eyeball here, that's going to give you a preview of what your event looks like. So as Hillary had mentioned, you can decide whether you want this kind of event banner or this part, that the formatted description, if you want that to show at the bottom or the top. So maybe I don't really like that it's showing at the bottom. I want my event to kind of catch people's eye a little more. So I'm going to go back to my event here, and I'll click edit. Formatted description, that's where that fancy editor is. And I want it actually shown at the top of the event. So I'll hit save. Do my event again. Remember, it was just that eyeball. And here we go. I think that looks nice. So here's all my information that's displayed.
Yeah, so thank you, Casey. I know we are at time and people were going to be dropping off. But real quick, if you click on that show admin option to go back to your event, yes, and you'll see the tools there where she clicked the eyeball. You've got your registrants and your list of people there. You can also, if you click that second one, that attendance, you can actually go back in once the event has taken place and you can record who physically showed up to your attendance or to your event. So it also will capture who actually physically showed up, which is great. As we move more into face-to-face, you could actually have somebody with a computer there bring this up and record people as they sign in, as they come into your event. So that's kind of a nice little feature. But I do know we're at time, so I don't, this was great, Casey. You did an awesome job. So kudos to you. But I wanted to let everybody know we will provide this recording as well as the documents that we've put together for everybody. So be on the lookout for that. And if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out either to myself or the Ohio chapter at winupoh.gmail at winup. Now let me try that again. winupoh@gmail.com. And we would be glad to help answer and or direct you as you put out your events. So does anybody have any comments or questions at this point as we wrap up?
Thank you, ladies. This is good to see and understand what's going on.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and call it time. Be on the lookout for more of these types of sessions in the next year as we all get to learn more and more about using our websites. So thanks everybody for attending.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, everyone.